and I've said to her we want the WBC title. The champion's Eva Wallström. She's been the WBC champion for a good while now, but I think that's the next move, Natasha Jonas, and I'd love to see Natasha fight for that world title in the summer.
Well, let's go back a couple of weeks when your man Anthony Crolla got a victory over Edison Ramirez. Unfortunately, Anthony suffered a clash of heads in the third round, which left him with 10 stitches to his eye. But how bad is the cut, and could it affect him for fighting in the summer as planned?
No, his cut's healed really well. The doctors did a good job. He's had a good cryo on it, and no, he was in the gym Monday here training. He's doing his strength work. He's beginning to switch on. He's due to get married in August. Whether he fights before then or not, I think it'll be a decision between either Anthony and his bride-to-be. I think she'll have a say on that, whether he's turning up with black eyes or more stitches. So yeah, listen, he'll be available to fight in the summer if need be, but I think the likelihood it'll be September now. Let him have his wedding, and then let's go back to work and fight in September now in a world title fight.
Well, Mikey Garcia is expected to vacate his WBC title, and Anthony's domestic rival Luke Campbell could be made mandatory for the belt. Is that a fight that could happen next?
Yeah, I think Anthony wants to fight for a full world title. Ray Beltran is another option at the moment. Ray Beltran, as soon as Anthony fought, said well done, called him out, and listen, they've sparred each other before. That's a really good fight. That everyone knows Ray Beltran over here with his fight with Ricky Burns. Luke Campbell's a good fight as well. If Luke and Anthony were to fight for the vacant WBC belt, that's a great domestic showdown as well. Yeah, so there's good options on the table, and hopefully it'll be Ray Beltran or whoever it is on the other side for the WBC title, whether it be Luke Campbell or Mikey Garcia. We'll have to wait and see.
How would you feel there's finally progress on the fight, and Callum has the chance to face a fully fit George Groves?
No, it's great. It's what we've always wanted, and I think the general consensus is that everyone wants to see that final, George Groves versus Callum Smith, like you see with the cruiserweight final. George Groves is considered number one super middleweight in the world by the Ring magazine. Callum Smith's number 3, and I think that's a great domestic showdown. I think Callum Smith versus anyone else in that final makes a mockery of the tournament. It's great to hear that his shoulder operation's gone well. It's great to hear, looking at the World Boxing Super Series, I've got a grant in the extension, and the fight goes ahead. Callum Smith went in this tournament to show everyone that he wasn't scared of fighting anyone, and there was a world title in it, and he wants to come out of the tournament as the Muhammad Ali trophy champion, but more than importantly, a world champion. George Groves has that world title fight. I think a final with Callum Smith in it without a world title fight isn't a final. So whether it was George Groves or not George Groves, the only other options would have most probably been a Benavidez or most probably a James DeGale. But like you say, it's great news of George Groves, and we're looking forward to seeing him in July.
I saw an interview with Shane McGuigan yesterday, and he said that Callum Smith team want the fight to be on June the 2nd and are trying to force us to fight unprepared. What do you make of that comment?
It's a load of rubbish. I think that's just Shane talking absolutely rubbish. Everyone knows we've been sat waiting all the time, waiting World Boxing Super Series, waiting for George's medical reports. We're sitting and waiting on George Groves. That's who we want to fight. We've made no issues whatsoever wanting to fight June the 2nd. We're not trying to swerve George Groves. I just think it's loads of rubbish. I don't know who's informed Shane of that, but I know Callum's legal team are taking up on that matter on Shane's comments the other day.
Have you got any updates regarding when we'll find out a date for the final?
From what I understand, that they're talking about the end of June or the beginning of July, so whether that's the 23rd, the 30th or the 7th of July, that's it. The venue, I'm not sure. I got told it was the O2, then I'm hearing it's Manchester. Callie messaged me the other day, I think it was Sunday, and just said you'll hear something, and it'll all be confirmed very shortly in the next few days. So hopefully by the end of the week we have it, and it's all systems go, and we can't wait really. Callum Smith's waited long enough to become a world champion. He's been WBC mandatory for I don't know how long, and we got messed around with Darrell, and he just wants to fight for the world title, and Callum Smith v George Groves is a fan-friendly fight.
Well, Paul Butler has the chance to become a two-time world champion as he faces Emmanuel Rodriguez on the undercard of Habus Bellew for the vacant IBF bantamweight title. What's your thoughts on the fight?
A very tough fight. Emmanuel Rodriguez, not many people know him over here. He's a good prospect from Puerto Rico. He's a very hot prospect. Everyone's talking about him over in America. He was made a mandatory challenger for Ryan Burnett. Purse bids were called, but Team Burnett and Adam Booth decided to vacate, and when you watch Rodriguez you can see why they decided to vacate, and they kept with the WBA. So yeah, Paul's got a tough fight. Emmanuel Rodriguez is a tough fighter, very much in the same way people didn't know about Solane Tete. They're not known to him until they come here and they go, wow, he's good him. I'm saying now Rodriguez is good, everyone's got to be impressed with him. Paul's got a good fight. we're working well, and I think it's going to, like I say, for Paul, it's another opportunity for him to become a two-time world champion. It's got to be a really, really good fight. You've got two very skilled fighters, two big punchers, and rightly so. You fight the best for a world title, and no one can deny Paul Butler or not say that he's not fighting one of the best in the world for this world title.
Well, Paul has one defeat on his record, and that's against Zolani Tete in 2015. Now, I understand that you wasn't a trainer with Paul at the time, but how do you compare Paul Butler when he joined with you 2 years ago?
Paul now is a different kid. That's not just me saying it. You see that after every time he fights, everyone's saying how he's improved. He's stylistically wise. He's more composed. His shot selection's very good. He's more patient. You just have to look in the comparisons with the Stuart Hall fight. I don't think Stuart Hall won a round in the rematch. Paul boxed beautifully, orthodox southpaw, switched it up, and it was a really good performance. And I think having this time now with Paul, nearly 2 years, Paul's a solid fighter. He's been around the gym with all the other fighters. He's watching, he's learning, watching Liam Smith, Callum Smith, Anthony Crolla sparring. There's a good environment. And I'm expecting a really good Paul Butler come May the 5th. Paul's a very, very talented person, very, very talented. And no one's seen the best of Paul Butler yet. And hopefully May the 5th, Rodriguez will bring the best out of Paul Butler, and everyone will all be talking about Paul Butler come Sunday morning.
I know he doesn't want to look past the Rodriguez fight, but could a potential fight with Tete be on the radar for him if he comes past Rodriguez? Yeah,
there's talk of the World Boxing Super Series where you've got the likes of fighters like a Rigondeaux, a Tete, a Ryan Burnett, Paul Butler, Jamie McDonnell and Inoue, all them thrown in the mix, and I think Paul beats Rodriguez. He'd want a little bit of that World Boxing Super Series. That fight is one. Ryan Burnett is another fight we'd want. We've tried to make this fight, but they're going having a voluntary, but we've been on to Eddie all year about trying to make the Ryan Burnett fight. Paul was usually disappointed. He was chasing the Jamie McDonnell fight. Wanted it, thought we nearly had it, but Jamie's gone now fighting in Inoue in Japan for big money. So Paul, he seems to be always the bridesmaid, never the bride, but I'm sure his time's coming now.
Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me at the gym today. That's Joe Gallagher for Fight Hub TV.